invoking the Buddha's name 3 times. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Good morning, everyone. Today's Enlightenment Day. We're all going to become enlightened, okay? Ready for this? So we've spent pretty much all year going over the 4 foundations of mindfulness of the Satipatthana Sutta. So we have finished everything as a last class. So for the next few classes for the rest of the year, or at least for the next 3 classes that we're here, 2. Oh, I forgot, we have a retreat on one of the class days. So anyway, that's beside the point. We have a couple more classes at least that I will be here for. So I'm going to attempt to kind of go over the 4 foundations, kind of as just to surmise everything, give you a summary. And because we have a limited number of classes left for the year, I was going to do 2 of the foundations, but I'm like, who am I kidding? I can barely get through 1. So I will attempt to at least get through 1 today. The first, mindfulness of body, since it's one of the longer ones anyway. So I'll go over the mindfulness of body. I won't go through all the 10 exercises within the sutra, but I'll go over at least 3 or 4 that are usually the more helpful ones. So we'll do that. So, if we remember about the history of the Satipatthana Sutra, it is one of the 2 main meditation sutras that we have, or one of the 2 most important, at least, meditation sutras. The other one being the Anapanasati Sutra, the mindfulness of breathing discourse. So the mindfulness of breathing discourse, Anapanasati, is the discourse on mindfulness of breathing. So the whole discourse is to develop our concentration, meditation, samatha. And the Satipatthana is to help us develop insight, or the vipassana side of meditation, contemplation meditation. And so typically when we practice meditation or we study meditation or attempt to develop our meditation practice, we typically want to start with the calming meditation first, right? The samatha meditation, the concentration meditation. And then once that is developed enough, or our concentration is steady enough to maintain and hold for a good amount of time, then we would kind of venture into the vipassana part of things, into the contemplation part of meditation. Since contemplation requires a little bit more focus, right, to maintain on our contemplation object, it is important to at least have some sort of grasp, a good grasp on being able to concentrate on something. But anyway, so Satipatthana, according to the sutras, is the process of establishing mindfulness, right? And so as the title suggests, right, it's the foundations of mindfulness. And so the 4 foundations, which include the 4 objects, right, mindfulness of body, mindfulness of feeling, mindfulness of mind, and the mindfulness of objects of mind. These are the objects that allow us to to develop that process of mindfulness, right? So it's being mindful of these things within these things. So when we talk about mindfulness of the body, it's mindfulness of the body in the body, right? And so as we go through the different exercises, as they progress, we'll see what we mean by that, what we mean by mindfulness of the body in the body. So the very first 3 exercises have to do with the breath, right? So the very first exercise is conscious breathing, the second is following the breath, and the third is oneness of body and mind. So I'm going to kind of put all these kind of together. And what is happening in these exercises is essentially the conscious breathing is just being conscious of your breathing, right? Know that we're breathing, because breathing is such a habitual activity, right? We're unaware that we're breathing most of the time, right? Unless we're out of breath, we're trying to catch our breath. That's the only time when we recognize breathing is occurring, right? And so it's only when we sit in meditation, be actually consciously aware of our breathing, that we can actually enjoy the breath. Like, oh yeah, this is breath. This breath gives me life. This breath allows me to be here and sit here and think and say and do stuff, right? So it's being conscious of the breathing, just being aware of it, right? Being aware that you're breathing in, being aware that you're breathing out. That's the first 4 of the Anapanasati exercises. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I'm breathing out. Breathing in a long breath, I know I'm breathing in a long breath. Breathing out a long breath, I know I'm breathing out a long breath. Breathing in a short breath, I know I'm breathing in a short breath. Breathing out a short breath, I know that I'm breathing out a short breath. Right? So it's just being aware that breath or breathing is happening. Then we go into the second exercise, which is following the breath, right? This becomes a little bit more specific, or a little bit more detailed in the following of the breath. And so one way that I practice this exercise is kind of not necessarily visualizing, but feeling the breath as it enters and exits your body. So as you breathe in through the nose, you're feeling the breath at the tip of the nose, right? You're feeling the breath enter nostrils and kind of move down into your lungs. Feel it expanding into your lungs and feel it go out, and just literally feeling the breath, feeling the air enter and exit the body. Then we move on to the third exercise, which is oneness of body and mind. This is where the jhana factor of applied attention is kind of established, right? So in the jhana factor, if we remember, I guess it was last year, when we studied the jhana factors, right? These are the factors that allow us to enter access concentration or into deeper meditation practices of the jhanas. But once we get to applied attention, right, this is where our breathing starts to become normalized. It starts to become calm. It starts to become very subtle, right? And the body and mind kind of start to merge, right? We kind of have that whole grounded feeling. Or because if you recognize as you first sit for meditation, or if you just first sit anywhere, anytime, you feel the pressures of the body sitting, right? You're feeling the pressure of sitting down on the floor right now, right? You feel your knee bent, you feel your back adjusting, you feel your movements of the body, you're just feeling everything, right? But that is separate from the feeling of following the breath. But as we sit for meditation and start to relax the body, start to relax the breath, and everything starts to become calm and serene and subtle, the body and breath and mind starts to becomes more subtle, and kind of the sensations of the body start to lessen, right? You don't necessarily feel that pressure anymore, or at least not as much, right? And so you don't feel the pressure too much. The movements of the as you adjust the body or your posture, become a little bit more subtle, a little bit more aware of it, or you're mindful of the movements. And so everything is kind of moving in tandem together, right? It's not separate. You're not a long breath or big sigh without awareness, right? We become one with everything. If that makes sense. Does that make sense? Or am I just dumb? I mean, I'm already dumb, but okay. Then we move on to calming, the fourth exercise, and this is where the second jhana factor of sustained attention kind of develops. This is where our object of meditation, whatever method you're using, becomes sustained and mostly unintentional. And if a distraction arose or something came up, or you heard something, or something moved, or whatever it may be, it doesn't faze you, right? It does have concentration that you're in. And so if you're following your breath, typically if you're meditating on the breath, whether you're following the breath or if you're counting the breath, what may happen to an unmindful practitioner is if the door opened or a distraction arose or something, a pause in the breathing. There's a pause or there's a gasp in the breathing, right? It's very subtle sometimes, but that still it causes a disconnect, right? And so it kind of resets the whole breathing again, right? And so, but once we are in a state of total calmness, or at least be, but it's not enough to disconnect that very subtle breathing. Then we move on to the more fun exercises, stuff of the body. So exercises 5, 6, 7, 8. Actually, the rest of the exercises have to do with the body. Obviously, right? We're on the mindfulness of body. But exercise 5 is about positions of the body. And this is kind of shifting how our breath is moving, right? So seeing, or feeling the breath enter and exit, right? Go up and down, go up and down. Then once that becomes regular, right? Once the breath starts to calm and become subtle and fluid, then we can kind of move on into further exercises. And the next exercise would be the positions of the body. So now that the breath is calm, is the body itself calm? Right? This is where we pay attention to how you're sitting. You're paying attention to the sensations of your position, right? Do you feel your legs? Do you feel your feet? Do you feel the back? Do you feel your arms, right? Where are they, right? Because it's not, mindfulness isn't just, when you're mindful, you have to be mindful of something, right? And so when you're sitting and we're being mindful of the body, you know that your hands are in your palms, or resting on your knees, inward or outward, right? You're sitting there. That's the exercise. You know exactly where everything is and how it is, right? So that way, as we go through the next exercise, the actions in the body, this is where we make those adjustments, those mindful adjustments. So if you do notice that you're slouching or crouched around or looking like, a cripple, I guess, then you make the mindful awareness that I need to adjust, right? And so you mindfully make the note, adjust. And you know how you're moving, how you're adjusting, right? What you're doing. It's not just, all right, I need to fix myself. Well, what are you fixing? Are you adjusting your back? Are you adjusting your shoulders? Are you adjusting your feet? Right? So you're making specific notations of what is being moved. The seventh exercise, probably one of the more helpful practices or exercises, because if you remember, this is where you kind of did the body scan of starting from the heads of our hair, if you have hair, all the way down to the soles of the feet, right? And so we sit in meditation and we literally kind of, whether you want to visualize it or not, but you bring, for me at least, I'll focus and be mindful of the head of my hair for 3 breaths length, right? You can do more or less, whatever you want to do. But you become aware, but you meditate literally in the head of your hair, the hair of your head for 3 breaths. And then you move down to the scalp, to your skull, to your brain, right? Your forehead, eyebrows. Let me see if I have it. Usually there's like 5 main ones. I think it's like hair, skin, heart, lungs. Hair, skin, heart, lungs. Something else I can't remember. But you can do as much or as little detail as you want. The more detail you give, the longer the practice is, right? The longer your session is. This exercise is, I said it to be one of the most helpful ones because unlike just being aware of the breath entering right at the anapana spot, right? This is the anapana spot. Anapana literally means in, out. So this is the anapana spot. If you're meditating on the anapana spot and just being aware of the air and exiting, although it is very helpful and effective, it does tend to become boring and lose its power over time, which is natural, right? It's technically supposed to do that. But because you're only focusing on one thing, after a while, the mind's going to just wander naturally, right? It wants something else to focus on. And so there's a lot of, but when we're doing the parts of the body, because we're focusing on different things all the time, right? There's typically little room for the mind to be distracted. Right? Because you're going other than just focusing on one little spot for 30 minutes, right? So this becomes a very effective, helpful exercise. I don't necessarily agree with that title, but it's meant to allow us to see the interdependent nature of us and the universe and everything else outside of us, right? That there that is. So seeing things in this way can liberate and awaken us. And also in this exercise, I think it mentions how the body has the 4 elements, right? Of water, earth, fire, and air. And how our body in itself contains all these elements. And so one of the practices is to see the body, or to see the elements in the body. So like obviously our body's made of mostly water, right? And so that's the element of water. There was heat, so element of fire. Yeah, breathe, so that's air. And then we have the solids, and that's earth. And so it's to see these ingredients that the universe is made out of, which scientifically we already know is accurate, right? We're made of stardust. We are the universe. So you pluck one little strand of hair, I don't have a strand of hair. But if I did have a strand of hair, right, the strand of hair in and of itself is the entirety of the universe, right? And so I'm holding an imaginary strand of hair. So to see the interdependentness of ourselves, or to see the interdependent nature of ourselves with everything else, right, allows us to get, or at least puts us on the path of seeing the non-self is one of the biggest objectives of our practice is to see the non-self nature of things, to see things as impermanent and to see things as suffering. Right? Those are the three doors of liberation. Doors of liberation. And so this helps us see, because if we think of self in this case, right, we're thinking that this is my individual being. This is my name. This is my age. This is my height. So we think of ourselves as separate from everything else. And so whatever happens to us is a direct attack to us, right? Someone insults you, that's a direct attack. Someone hits you, that's a direct attack. I mean, that's kind of obvious, but you get what I'm saying. And so when we see, or when we don't see, I'm trying to simplify my analytic reasoning of this. When we're able to see that things are not separate outside of ourselves, when we're able to see that whatever happens to us, whatever is said to us, whatever is directed to us, mind in those situations, and see what the mind is going through, see what the mind is thinking and how it's thinking and how it's responding, that gives you a lot of insight of how you see yourself, right? And so that's why when someone's insulting you, right, what is our natural reaction to that? What is our habitual reaction to that? But if you think of it from a Buddhist perspective, because everything's interrelated, interdependent, interconnected, whatever they say is no different than what you would ever say. What they're saying to you is essentially the same as them talking to themselves. What am I, I'm stepping off the theory. Personal thing of a theory of interdependence, that we are all the same being. We all have heard of multiverse theory, right? The multiverse theory. So my opinion on this multiverse theory is that there is one, since there's a kind of an idea that the universe is just this one consciousness, right, experiencing itself. And that means that the universe is just doing, that makes sense in my head. So let's say Quang Tri is in this universe, right? When Quang Tri dies, the next universe comes about and Quang Hin is born. It's different universes overlapping, but we're the same being, just living separate time frames or different universes. You know what I mean? Like think of yourself as one universe. Quang Hin is in a different universe, but they overlap. And Stephanie's in a third universe, and that overlaps. Vinay is in a fourth universe, and that overlaps, right? But in reality, I'm just here talking to myself into an empty room. In reality, Quang Hin is here just staring at an empty table, But anyway, so that's kind of my theory. So when I think of it like that, that means that when I'm here talking to you, I'm actually talking to myself in a different universe. Quang Hin's listening to himself in a different universe, right? And so when someone's insulting you or yelling at you or calling you names, you're actually just doing it to yourself. Offendable, it's because I see it as me just saying it to myself. And there's no reason to get insulted. There's no reason to get hurt. There's no reason to be upset about it. Right? Because we talk to ourselves all the time. At least I do, right? We say things all the time. We judge ourselves all the time. And so what is the difference between that and someone else doing it?
So here is the catch on that one. Because the people who are suicidal or being depressed, basically they are, so here in that case, like you are telling yourself there is no meaning and it kill themselves. So that's the case, because like if you keep them separate, okay, I'm separate and I'm superior than that, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the ego factor, is more the superiority. Yes, I think I'm going off topic, but
That's right. I go on tangents too, so take a tangent for me.
but here is the universe itself. And it's theory of relativity. It's like you can go to the nano, nano people, and even like very small level, the creatures there, and that's the whole universe for them. Like we are able to research and see that. Like for ants, this little thing is mountain for us, and their life cycle is different, and their period. And same thing is the universe. Probably very small particle and dust particle where we are living, and we are very tiny things. It's like a small beer here, the whole universe.
Right.
And we think, oh, it's huge. We are just traveling Mars and all those. But there's so many universes at the same time. There's so many human trees. There's so many everywhere. They're at the same time simultaneously. It's like ants. It's like mosquitoes everywhere. So they have to have it's replicated very. So that theory is correct. It's unique. I mean, that's how we are able to, like, so far we are able to see that everybody's mind works a little bit kind of like, I mean, it's overall same, but they, at the same time, it reacts, it fights, it argues. People used to run for fright. That's the mentality we have. Yes, either fight or run.
Right, fight or flight.
So like so that's why it's automatic pilot. Whenever somebody he's attacking me, this is gonna eat me right there. So I'm gonna have to attack it back to scare him away, or I have to run away because to keep survive.
Right.
And this is the theory. That's how I feel like. But the self, there is no self. It's like we are all same atom, same particle, everything the same. But still, we can all like if something happens. There are a lot of. I think you told the story or somebody else did. The story like it's a business story. I think like this guy, he's a businessman. He's so old, like I don't know, thousands years old, 1,000 years ago, and he went to like he was a businessman in India, and he went like somewhere in the Middle East, and he got very rich, and his family was poor, but like so his wife and son, when he left, his son was they were rich a little bit, but they said, okay, go look for your father, and then they said, I don't know how my father is. So they sent a servant with him, his wife, and then said, you go find him. And they go live in the hotel like Sarai and they live there, and this was a cold winter night and snowing and everything else. He got sick, the son got sick, and the father was resting in the same place at the same place coincidentally. And then so he was sneezing and coughing outside the hotel because he was staying luxury. He goes to the hotel management and said, get him out, this guy like disturbing my sleep with his own son. Did we know each other?
Yeah.
So, but then he kicked him out, and they kicked him out. They said, go find another place. So he was sleeping under the tree or somewhere, and he died, he passed away, the son, 23, 24 years old, whatever. And the servant like sees in the mall, everybody gathers and they're like, what happened to this guy, rich guy? You guys again disappeared. The guy, he was sleeping here, somebody kicked him out and he was sleeping there. And the place, like he died, passed away. And then he goes, he just looks around, and then the servant, he sees him, he recognizes, he says, oh, so sorry, this was your son. And then he starts weeping and crying and all those things. So like even like he was speaking separately, but it's the same thing, right? It's the same DNA and all. But we keep like our mind was we can't see say like if you can see his son, it was his son, his DNA. You can see couldn't recognize it, and then he was like all of a sudden he was son and he's like, oh, my son died, and everything is crying, this drama. So that's the story. And I don't know, actually you told me somebody else did.
I don't remember telling that story, but that's an interesting story.
Yeah, it's the story. It's like it's one of the.
Well, when I say to see others as yourself, that practice in its own is difficult, right? Because most people have biases, most people have discriminations, or they're racist, whatever. And so this maybe is yourself, or is the same as you, isn't a natural thing, isn't natural for people, right? But that's why we meditate, is to recognize that there's no difference between me and you. Because I suffer and you suffer. I'm happy, you're happy, right? When I have sadness, you have sadness. You know, there's nothing necessarily that separates us besides our actual lives, right? That's the only thing that separates us. Those details are the only things that differentiate me and you. But fundamentally, that things are the same. To see fundamentally that there's no major difference between all of us, then it makes it a little bit easier to connect and say, I see you, or I see me in you, right? The only difference is you're a man or you're a woman, you're tall, you're young, you're short, you're old, whatever it may be. If you close your eyes, you don't see any of that, for instance, right? But because we allow our perception of things, that's what causes us to see separateness. Because we have perceptions of how people should be, how they should act, how they should react, right? How they should talk, how they should dress, how they should walk, how they should talk, whatever, right? We have these expectations of people, society, others, and because we have that, it gets in the way of allowing us to see that there's no difference between me and you.
If you look at the nature, so the crops, the ideal environment, and you give somewhere else a very harsh environment or different places. So there is always going to be how they grow, what karma is. This is so in sleeping about cause and effect, your actions, always towards their environment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why everybody has unique DNA, because nobody born at the same time. And also these called astrology means, I mean, I don't believe in astrology, but they say if you born at this time, these planets were in this,
Yeah.
these okay, I mean, they were talking to me recently, like all these things change here, what they call like a Virgo and all.
Perhaps those are just different aspects of the mind.
Yeah, micro level, or even, I would say, small level. I mean, like just based on the, or some people don't have the abilities, then they just continue, they cannot react, and then there's another. So it's like a story, Chandler's story, that we continue go into the cycle.
fundamentally, it's still, there's suffering and there's non-suffering. That's it. Right? So that's what I'm saying, that's what we should see. So if Stephanie's up here yelling at me for whatever reason, I can acknowledge that that's suffering. Right? That is the only common thing that every single living being has in common, is that we all suffer. Right? That's a pretty big thing to have in common. But that is the main connection that we all have. And so for someone who is awakened in non-suffering, and then when you see someone yelling and you can recognize that suffering, you can say, oh, they are suffering. I've suffered too. And because I've suffered, I can recognize the suffering, and I want to do better, or at least maybe attempt to help them to not suffer. Right? That's what I'm saying. That's what each other. See ourselves in each other. Because if you're not aware, if you're not awakened enough to recognize suffering, then what you're going to do is just yell back. And so now there's a yelling match. Because you're thinking that you're separate. You're thinking that someone's yelling at you, so now you have to yell back. There's a separateness. But if you recognize we're one and the same, and recognize that we're one and the same because you suffer and I suffer, and I can recognize the suffering, and I want to alleviate that suffering.
That was okay, like be happy about that. If you're suffering, I don't have to suffer. Be happy about this.
I mean, if that's what you want to do in life, then do it.
When we see that like they're suffering, that's why I have to suffer. I don't want to treat.
If you don't want to help the suffering, then you're part of the problem. I'm kidding. But anyway, let's move on. So there's technically 10 exercises in mindfulness of body, but we've only covered 9 because the 10th one was not really relevant. But the 9th exercise was seeing the body as impermanent. And this is where we did the contemplation on the stages of the body decomposing. And I'll recite the position of a corpse. Is that the corpse is bloated, blue, and festering. The corpse is crawling with insects and worms. Crows, hawks, vultures, and wolves are tearing it apart to eat. That all that is left is a skeleton with some flesh and blood still clinging to it. All that is left is a skeleton with some blood stains, but no more flesh. All that is left is a skeleton with no more blood stains. All that is left is a collection of scattered bones here and, all that is left is a collection of scattered bones. All that is left is a collection of dried bones, and the bones have decomposed and only a pile of dust is left. It's very graphic. But this exercise is helpful because it allows us to see the impermanent nature and the decomposition of the body, right? And for this exercise is unpleasant, right? I mean, it does sound unpleasant, don't get me wrong, right? Like you're visualizing a decomposing body. But because the end result is to see the impermanent nature of the body, right? And to be in a stage of acceptance of that. So that way, as we get old, as we get sick, and we age, and eventually die, it's not something that we're afraid of. It's not something that we're trying to postpone necessarily or deny, right? Of course, we want to live as long as we want for most people, right? So we take care of the bodies, we work out, we eat right, we exercise, we diet, whatever it may be, right? To extend the longevity of our life, or at least to have a healthy life, right? With mentally, et cetera, et cetera. But seeing the impermanence of the body first and foremost, right, becomes important, and we recognize that feelings in themselves are also impermanent, right? Because there's not a single feeling that you've ever had or will have that is permanent. Every single feeling you've ever had has come, has done something, and has gone away, right? That is impermanent. It may arise again and come back, either stronger or weaker, or just come back, but that doesn't stay. And then we get to the mind, and the objects of mind, everything else, all your emotions, all your feelings, even your beliefs sometimes changes, right? There's even, think of something last year, just last week. You're not even the same person you were last week, right? And so as we go through the foundations and go through the exercises, and we see the things that come and go and how they work and why they work the way they work, for what they are as they are. And so we feel if we apply the principle of impermanence to everything, there is nothing that would ever affect you. There can't be any, right? Every feeling that you have, every emotion that you have, every belief you have, every like and dislike, etc., all these are impermanent. If they're impermanent, then there's no, how would they ever cause you suffering? Right? But since we're fools, right, and we attach to it is because people are attaching to their beliefs, attached to their perceptions and ideas, feelings, etc., etc. So they suffer. Because they suffer, they're allowing the world to suffer. Because the world's suffering, we suffer. Fortunately for us, happening and has happened and will happen is impermanent. So we have some control over the state of our own mind. And if you have control over the state of your own mind, that means you have a taste of freedom. When you have a taste of freedom, you have a taste of liberation. When you have a taste of liberation and how sweet it is, you want more of it, and so you work harder and harder and harder to achieve it, to get to it. Right? At least that's my hope for you. Had a taste of that liberation, and you just want more of it. Right? That's the only thing that's okay to have more of. Okay. I'm actually going to stop on time for once to allow us to meditate on the impermanence and feelings, questions, concerns, emotional outbursts.
And it's like, I think it's still, the no self-concept is very good in a lot of things, like materialism is required, I mean, it is there, but at the same of at least like what lot of weight we have. But at the same time, when you look like we differentiate, or we let's say we don't differentiate, but we observe, and people know how to control their minds. Means killing, all are then. Let's say, okay, I'm doing that. I'm doing all that killing. Those people are doing it. But let's, for a second, for your theory, or like for no self-concept, say, okay, I'm doing, even like my 0.0001% mind doesn't say do killing. I can't even, don't want to kill ants. Mm-hmm. And those guys are slaughtering people, or angry, upset, cursing, how can I see when they are me? That's they are getting angry at me, or when they are getting angry at me, I'm getting angry at me. But it doesn't apply like that. It has to be applied everywhere. In those scenarios, like everywhere, like somebody shoots at other person or does something really, really gruesome. Means, then why do I have to think that's me? If there's no self-hearing. So that's where I was. I have to be there suffering, but I'm not, right? But how can I say, okay, well, I'm suffering there, that's why I'm killing, I'm doing all the gruesome things, rapes and murders and drugs and name it, means, yeah, it means I should see it there, but yeah, means I can partake that, okay, but then again, I can't see those are me doing, right?
I see what you mean. I could kind of, I could kind of explain. So, especially with some recent things that have happened, some people have taken some actions into their own hands. But then, kind of think about like why they're doing those things. It's kind of what Quang said. They've attached to it this way, but when they look at someone and they go, they're not thinking the same way that I am. They shouldn't be. But then now it's the opposite way. That other person is now thinking their own way is right. And I guess that's where the suffering comes from. It's not necessarily that. I think it's more as that you want the world to be the way that you want it to be. But literally everyone's like that. But some people take it to an extreme and go, they can't have that. They can't have the.
The question is that I think question is completely different. We're talking about no self here. We're talking about what you're saying. You should see those people of us exactly. Those are replica of us. And that's the point I was saying. They cannot, and I mean, whenever they get angry or they are mean or something like, so I don't have to react because they are mean. I'm hating myself. All those ideas, perceptions, whatever they have, but those ideas don't enter in my mind. They never cross my mind, and never even like that one within that is. Well, how can that be my idea?
It was in a different universe.
No self-question, by the way.
Well, I think it kind of goes to what he said about the details. So, like, everyone has like a way they want to see the world, but then it's in the details. It's like, I want the world to be black, or I want the world to be white. Yet there's still a desire to want something, but it's the details that kind of separate. There's still, I think the same.
There's no self. So the question is again, so are they me? Are those people there?
Everyone has ideas, but the difference is the difference in ideas.
Well, the answer asking if, because since I'm saying, for those people that do horrible things, right, I'm saying, I said to see them as you in a different universe, right? And so the question is, how do I accept what that person is doing, all these horrible things? And how?
The question is like you're saying, those are in my like I was applying your theory. You said other than Dharma part, that the theory they are you, right? No self means they are you in some like overlapping, and the way you explain is multiple universe and then overlapping, and they are exactly me, like I'm you and you are me.
Yeah.
And that's where there are no self. So we are completely same thing, right? We are exactly same thing. We are not different. You are me and I'm you. And if I'm doing something bad, that means you are doing something bad, right? That's why you're saying that this is the no self theory, right? And now I think them, or I can be basically killing somebody, but they are doing all those things. And how can I see them? They are me.
Well, think of each person, right? And Quang is in a different universe. Quang has different karma, right? So every time you're a person has different karma, so you have different mentalities. So yeah, in this life, you don't have the thought of being able to kill someone. But in the universe where you're calling in, right? Like I said, you're not the same person as you were last week. Maybe 10 years ago you hated milk, but now you love milk, right? Or now you can tolerate milk, or whatever it may be, right? So that right now, I can't think of killing someone, but think of people who play video games. They kill people all the time, not literally, but they have an idea of, I can kill this other player. The only difference between someone who plays video games and kills someone in a video game and killing someone in real life is just that. It's taking an extreme step from one end to the other. But my point is
yeah, it's like they're more awakened and they're not aware of it. So we are saying this mistake. Again, like, we're talking about relativity, theory of it. But with
yeah.
respect to the, I see.
Mm-hmm.
So with respect to consciousness, with respect to like the whole universe, like stand, yes.
It's a much bigger topic than it is that we have time for, but yes. Hence why I said it was my personal theory. It's not a real thing this time. So do a quick stretch. Sit for at least almost 30 minutes this time. Welcome back. Hopefully everyone had a fruitful meditation. Yes. Through my meditation, I recognize that we only have one more actual class. The next class. Since the class after that, we will actually be having our half-day intensive meditation retreat. So that's going to be on October 11. So it'll be from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Well, till 5, because 4 to 5 we'll have our tea ceremony. So it'll be optional for those that want to stay for that, but officially it'll be 9 to 4. And I'll be out of town for a little bit over a month for a retreat, personal retreat, so I shall not be here. But until the end of November, there still will be classes, meditation at 10 every second, fourth Saturday. It'll just be meditation. So Quang Hin will be here to start and end meditation and give some basic instruction if need be by those that attend. Which also means that this coming Friday for class will be only 2 more. After Lunar New Year, we'll return for meditation and sutra study class. So, retreat on the 11th. Be here. Expect that. I meant to do this retreat much earlier on instead of so close to our winter retreat, which will be mid-December, but wanted to at least get this out of the way before I go on my own retreat to give you guys a mini retreat as well. But anyway, and also remember we do not have English service tomorrow at 12:30. Shindig, the Festival of Faith at Incarnate Word, from 12 to 6 p.m. Everyone is welcome to join for that if you'd like. It's a free event, but we will be there, so we won't be here for service tomorrow. So just FYI. So, huh? No service tomorrow. It's at Incarnate Word University. I don't think so. Oh, awesome. Nice. Yeah, it'll be in the student center and stuff everywhere. Yes, it's open between 12 and 6, so anytime between that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What time is yours? What time is yours?
Well, it's tables and booths of different religions and faiths, so people just go around and Mm.
It's on the festival page. They're scheduled events.
Yeah, that's like
Yeah, I'm getting those emails now. It's registered and get
that's the event schedule.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
like Ticketmaster. Yeah, and then right. Cool. All right. So I will not see you for service tomorrow, but I will see you at Garden Word if you decide to show up. And I hope to see everyone for the retreat as well. So, well, in class, please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times and transferring the merit. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni